Welcome to another episode of the On the Water podcast brought to you by Guidesley. I'm Jimmy Fee.
I'm Kevin Blinkoff.
And we got a lot of great questions. We put out a kind of a query on social media, on Instagram, asking if you had any questions, that we'd answer them over our next few podcasts. And I think we're going to get right into it.
Let's go. Let's see what we got.
The first one's from Casey Allard. And this one was a really good one. I like this one. If you see another angler mishandling a striper or keeping shorts, should you say something?
I'm going to say that, first of all, those are sort of two different things. Someone mishandling a striper, if you can find a way to give them some advice, if you can find a way to approach them in a non-confrontational way, you can educate them, possibly. It all depends on the situation. Depends how much bigger they are than me, but for the most part, I'm going to try and say can I help you release that fish? Or, I've got pliers on me. Do you need some help? If they're, dragging it across the sand, maybe try and teach, again, you want to try and make it seem as if you're being helpful and educating. And, you'll find out pretty quickly by their reaction if they're open to educating or if they're offended.
Yeah, I was going to say something along those lines where it's give them the benefit of the doubt initially. Mm-hmm. A lot of cases where people aren't releasing the striped bass in the best way for the fish. It's mostly a matter of they just don't know the right way. I mean, it's tough to justify like punting a fish in. You see people kind of kicking them along the sand into the water, but a lot of times it's just somebody who either doesn't want to touch the fish or it's not always. They're not being malicious. They just might not know. So if you approach it that way and say, hey, can I help?
Right.
Can I help you do this? Or let me show you this to help the fish, swim away. If they're bothering to release the fish in the first place, they'd probably like it to live. So.
Absolutely. But then on the other side, if you see someone breaking the regulations, breaking the law, keeping a short fish, that's where I don't know that I would approach them. The first thing I would do is make a call. I've got the phone number for EPOs in Massachusetts on my phone. So whatever state you're in, you should definitely have the number. Most states have a hotline, and be ready to call. Unfortunately, in a lot of states, they don't have enough officers and they can't always get to it, but you should make that call. That is the best thing to do. Yeah.
Again, if you see them keep one short, it's the first short you see them keep, I would approach them. I would say, "Hey, that's probably under the size limit," and it could be a case where the people don't know, don't understand, or you'll find out, like you said, pretty quickly that they don't care, and don't confront them. Don't go and wrestle the fish away from them to throw it back. Like Kevin said, I would call the EPO, and even if they can't get there in time, at least it puts this area on their radar in the future. And you do see they do run sting operations. They do try to. It matters to them. It's just a matter of manpower and how many officers they have to cover such a large swath of the coast to crack down on this.
Another issue that we can get into sometime, but I know currently in Massachusetts there are fewer EPOs dedicated to the coastline than there have been in years. That number's declined, even though at the same time the number of anglers out there and the number of fishermen and boaters has increased, and there's actually more work out there. And that's something that I'd like to see change. I'd like to see more officers out there, and I think most people would agree with that. So let's jump to the next question.
So this question's from Mike Rollo, and this says, is it worth fishing a spot when you see seals? What's the best strategy for when they're around?
I would say it depends on kind of what the situation is. I've been out, say, kayak fishing in an area, and I see a seal. If it's a big open area, if you're in a boat or something like that, and a seal swims by, it's never a good sign, but at least if the seal's in the area, that's probably because there's bait and fish in the area. So I'll usually, if there's room to kind of move away a little bit, I'll do that. But Jimmy, you do a ton of surf casting. You've dealt with seals, I know, at different times. How would you handle that situation?
So it used to be if I saw seals, I immediately thought, that's it, the spot's over. I've kind of softened on that a little bit where you almost come to realize the seals are there for the same reason you are. There's bait. There's most likely there's bait, and for the seals, that bait could be striped bass. So it's a sign of life. Like when you're offshore fishing, you see whales. It's a sign of life. It's a good sign. There's also some tuna there. So I do think it's worth fishing that spot. I mean, there's a limit. If you're seeing one or two seals cruise by you on the beach, that's not a big deal. If it's a whole, if you're seeing pods of them go past, 4 or 5 at a time, maybe then you want to move on. But one thing I noticed, and there was one trip in particular I was on where we started fishing. It was me and Andrew Burke, who's one of our producers. We began fishing before sunset, and the seals got on us pretty quickly. We were catching stripers. I lost a fish to them. He lost a fish to them. Then they were kind of harassing us. We had one that I was landing a fish, and this seal came charging out of the surf. It looked like a hippopotamus coming out of the river. It was terrifying.
That's when you want to relocate. I think that's fairly obvious. Yeah, you want to move on at that point. And I think if you're competing with seals in fishing, that's one thing. If you have to worry about them scaring away the fish, if they're taking fish off your line and you're feeding seals, then in some ways, then that's something you want to get away from. Like, you definitely don't want to hang around, lose fish and gear to seals.
And you're reinforcing that, follow the fisherman. Here's an easy meal.
Exactly.
But that was, I think the only way we got that to turn around is Andrew was next to me as I was beaching the fish. I mean, I can't impress upon you how close this seal was. It was, it took your breath away. Andrew flashed a big light on it, and finally it turned around and went back into the surf. I don't like seals at all. I saw what the Outer Cape fishery was like in the early 2000s before the seals population really exploded to the point where it is now. But it does seem like it's kind of like it's finding its level almost, where there's still fish to be caught out there. The seals are there, but there's kind of room for both, even though the fishing isn't quite as good as it once was. On that night that I'm talking about, though, right after that, not long after the seal came charging out of the surf, Andrew and I moved maybe 100 yards. It wasn't far. And we were still into the fish, and the seals, either they couldn't find us or they moved on when we moved on, and they headed a different direction. But just that small of a move, we had the fish to ourselves for the rest of the night. So that was, that's something to think of. I think they saw us in the daylight catch a couple fish, and then they were going to hang out, and they knew there was going to be some easy pickings for them at that point.
Yes, I got a question here from Instagram. This is from ClouserMinnow08, who asks, what are some tips for fishing live eels from the surf? It's something I don't fish live eels very often anymore, but I used to do a lot. And there are a lot of things you can do to make it easier. There are a lot of tips and tricks. I think my favorite one that I learned was when you fish eels from the surf, the more lively the eels are, the more difficult your life is. And I got in the habit of freezing my eels before I went out to the point where they're nearly dead, but they still, once they warm up, they will come back to life. Getting them super cold, putting them on ice and fishing them, again, so that they're almost comatose. When an eel is really, really cold, it's limp and it barely moves. As soon as they start to warm up, they become really difficult to hook. They wrap around your wrist. They form the dreaded eel ball, eel knot.
Yeah, we just had a story in our May issue where the author wrote, the eel will tie. He called it a Gordian knot, is what the eel will do with your leader. It's as soon as it gets just its tail around, it manages to spin and create this. You end up having to cut the line. There's slime everywhere. Yeah, getting your eel under control is probably the first thing to make it easier to deal with in the surf. If I'm on a sandy beach, I'll just toss the eel in the sand, and that creates, kind of get a vice grip on the eel once it's covered in sand. That makes it a little easier. But as soon as that's on the hook, if you haven't done something to subdue the eel, like Kevin suggested, get it into the water quickly, or keep the rod bouncing. What you don't want to do is just have it sit there on a tight line, just waiting to do its acrobatics into your leader. So keep bouncing the rod, and that's just going to keep it from wrapping the line up. One of the I got a lot of eel tips one time from Iron Mike Everin, who was a
famous Rhode Island-based fisherman.
Yeah, he's caught a ton of big striped bass, and one of his things was, he said, you don't realize you're fishing a 10-foot surf rod, an 11-foot surf rod, and most guys, the tendency is to hold it, because it's easier this way with a rod that big. You're holding it so it's straight up in the air. He said about halfway through your cast, that eel's going to start planing to the surface. So what he does, the closer the eel gets, the lower he would lower his rod angle. And that way it was keeping the eel down closer to the bottom where the striped bass are more likely to look for it.
And that's not just with eels. I do that a lot of times. I fish soft plastics from the surf, and it's the same thing. I'll start off the retrieve with the rod tip high, a little faster, keeping that soft plastic up off the bottom like you would do with an eel. As it gets closer, bend over, drop the rod tip, let that, move it a little slower and make sure it stays in the strike zone all the way back in. The other things I would recommend fishing live eels from the surf, don't worry too much if the eel gets beat up. If you catch a fish or two, even if it's dead, I got to a point where and this is, I think, why a lot of people like fishing rigged eels. I preferred fishing a dead eel over a live eel. You lose kind of the headaches of dealing with a live eel swimming around, of trying to hook it. You can fish a fresh, dead, frozen eel. You can give it action with the rod tip, fish it a little more like a lure. You can hook it in a way, even on a circle hook, not necessarily rigged, but you can hook it in a way where it's going to stay on the hook better. You can cast it. I rarely would fish a live eel. I don't think I've fished one in a few years. I do like fishing a dead eel, and I love fishing soft plastics in that same sort of way. Slow retrieves, give it a little rod tip action, keep it near the bottom as much as possible. That would be my tip.
The dead eels definitely do work. I remember we had a great bite. It was 2016, and it was this incredible eel bite. And I was going through, eels were $2.25 a piece, and I was burning through hundreds of dollars in eels a week, to the point where I was just taking the dead ones, freezing them, and then I was using them. And I had one eel that I caught fish on it like 3 or 4 different nights in a row until it finally, deteriorated to the point that it fell off the hook. So dead eels will definitely catch fish. Even though it doesn't look like they're moving, when you retrieve them, they have a little bit of a subtle action. They've got that scent, and that's a really good tip. You save yourself a little bit of money too. But of course, with any bait for striped bass now, you need an inline circle hook. And I haven't landed on a circle hook. I've been kind of experimenting still. I'm still in that stage where I'm trying a bunch of different circle hooks with the eels till I find the one that I really love. It took me a while to find the right J hook that I liked.
Yeah, and that's, and also, to be honest, one of the reasons I kind of gave up on fishing eels from the surf was a live eel on a J hook is more likely, I feel like, than many other baits to gut hook a striper. And I didn't want to gut hook stripers, and so I switched more to soft plastics. I haven't fished them on circle hooks as much, but that should, hopefully, if you're fishing a circle hook, it's an inline like you're supposed to now, that should eliminate that gut hooking. Have you figured out what size circle hook you like with that?
It's tough to say. There's such a variation between hook manufacturers in terms of, a 6.0 for Mustad is going to be different than a 6.0 for VMC. In general, that 6.0, 7.0, like a 7.0 Gamakatsu circle hook is going to be like, if it's the octopus style circle hook, which is a little bit of a thinner wire one, that's going to be on the big side. So maybe you want to go with a 6.0 for that. For VMC, a 7.0, I think it's the tournament circle is their inline one. That's a good eel size. But like I said, I'm going through a lot of them right now. I have not landed on one I liked. With J hooks, I liked a little bit heavier gauge wire because I felt like that held onto the eel better for the cast. With the thinner gauge wires, even when you're hooking them, the way you would hook eels to cast them in the surf is up through the lower jaw and out through an eye socket, which sounds gruesome, but it would help prevent the eel from ripping off your hook, tearing off your hook while you were casting it, putting a little bit of force into it to try to reach the fish. And a thinner wire hook I felt like was more likely to tear through than the heavier
I like
gauge
the
hooks.
thicker, like a live bait style hook when I was fishing J hooks for them. But in general, I think if you're going from a J hook to a circle with an eel, the circle should be a little larger than you would think. It seems like a larger circle does a better job. It has to kind of wrap around that corner of the jaw on a striped bass.
You need enough of a gap there.
And so you need that gap. That's one problem I know a lot of people have with circles not working for them, is using too small of a circle hook. The gap gets kind of filled up by the bait, and it's not big enough to get around the jaw, the corner of the mouth, where it needs to find that purchase on a striped bass.
And then the hook set itself is also going to be different. And that's something where if you've spent your whole life just dropping the rod to the eel, when you have a fish biting an eel, you drop the rod to it, then wait for the line to tighten up and slam the hook home. That's not going to be what you do with a circle hook. What I found almost works best is when you get that bite, keeping the rod still, letting the rod load. Don't throw the fish slack. Just keep the rod still. And as it starts to load up, then begin reeling. And then once that rod's in a full bend, maybe give it a little bit of a, hey, how you doing? Just to
make sure it's planted.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really have to let the circle do the work and find purchase.
All right, Kevin, so we're going to do one more before we kick it over to our guest this week, who is Captain Jeff Viamari from Bad Influence Sport Fishing. And this one is from Insane JSTR, maybe Insane Jester. And the Insane Jester asks, power clips for attaching lures, trash or helpful? And there's no simple, that's not a yes or no question. I use them. I think they're extremely helpful, but for certain lures, I don't like them. But I know some people use them for everything, down to albie lures.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this, and we're talking about here when you're attaching a lure, rather than tying a knot directly to the lure, using a clip. There's a lot of different varieties of clips, freshwater, there's some sort of thinner wire snaps. The idea of a power clip, those are the freshwater ones that kind of look like a paper clip, and you tie it on one end of the clip, and on the other end, you're sliding kind of hard to describe, but you're sliding it through the eye of the lure. Once you're good at it, and once you get a feel for it, it is the easiest way to change lures by feel and do it quickly. So if you're a night fisherman, I'm definitely not going to be tying knots, and I don't want to deal with anything more complicated as a clip. So I'm a huge fan of them for surf casting, and definitely for nighttime surf casting.
Yeah, there's no moving parts on it. So when I used to use snaps when I first started surf fishing, you'd use either the duo lock snap or the cross lock snap, and those because they would move, the wires would get tired over time, and they would either break. And those, because they had moving parts, were also very easy for the fish to straighten out. I lost some heartbreaking fish to cross lock snaps before I went to these.
And there is the potential for user error there, where you think you've closed the snap, but you haven't. So yeah, I'm a big fan of those. Like you said, that there are some lures where they don't work so well. What would those lures be?
I don't like them on small. I see guys use them for false albacore, and I mostly see them in pictures where somebody's holding a false albacore with a lure with the clip in its mouth. So clearly the albie doesn't care. It works. And when I tie on my albie lures, I use loop knots. I use a non-slip mono loop. But in that situation, I like to minimize the hardware. Surf fishing for striped bass at night, I'm not worried about a little extra hardware on there. The striped bass is already overlooking the fact that there's, two giant, either inline single hooks or treble hooks on the plug. I don't think they're going to notice an inch-long clip. And for like you said, the time saving it does between lure changes and things like that, it's worth sacrificing a little stealth for that convenience there. Because otherwise, I find I've had nights where I've lost either a bluefish bit off the lure and I don't have any other clips, and that severely limits my my lure changing for that particular night. One, because I don't want you burn through leader every time you're tying a new lure on there, and two, it takes time. You've got to turn the light on. So the clips, definitely not trash, very helpful, striped bass surf fishing. And a lot of other applications.
And there's a few brands of them out there, and some of them have slightly different shapes to them, different things. You can find them in different weights and thicknesses. Some of them sometimes, like for a bucktail jig, something that has kind of a thick eye on it, you might need a bigger clip so that it can swing free, so that it's easy to move on and off. But for the most part, you can pick a clip that is the size that works for the type of fishing you're doing. Go with the brand that that works for you. I know there's Tactical Anglers makes a clip. Spro, I believe, makes a clip.
Breakaway was the first one that really kind of brought this to the market. Mm-hmm. And they had smaller, thinner wire ones, and then Tactical Anglers came out with a 125-pound one, which is become sort of the standard for surf fishing.
Yep. And Game On Lures out in Connecticut also does their own brand of clips, and they're all very similar. And I suggest kind of just trying them out and seeing which ones you like, but definitely pick them up and give them a try. Most of my fishing, I have a clip on there, just like you said, unless for some reason I feel like I need stealth and I want to tie direct.
One funny story about the clips is I bought a batch of, I think it was from Roscoe, and those clips were the opposite of the Breakaway and the Tactical Anglers ones. Let's call them left-handed clips. So, I made 1,000 lure changes with going this one way with these clips, and then all of a sudden I had these that went the other way, and it created all this. They worked great, but it was a lot of confusion trying to get it on. At night, wouldn't understand what was happening, and then I would realize I had to go on the other side of the clip to to get it done.
The other thing that I've done that I'm sure anybody who's spent time out surf casting at night, lost some sleep, has probably done this before. You get in a routine, you're switching lures, you unclip a lure from the clip and you put it in your bag, you pull out another one, and before you've clipped it on, you pitch it out in front of you as if it's already clipped on, and then all of a sudden you realize, I just took a lure out of my bag and just threw it in the ocean. I never clipped it on my line. I forgot about that step. And then you're like, okay, well, I guess I'll pick a different lure now.
Just a donation to Poseidon.
It happens.
But thank you very much for tuning into this podcast. Like I said, we've got a lot of fluke and bottom fishing talk coming up with Captain Jeff Viamari. If you have some questions, you can send them to us at feedback@onthewater.com. You can even record audio questions that we'll play here on the podcast. How would you do that, Kevin?
Send them in by email to feedback@onthewater.com or record that on your cell phone like a message and just do it the same way. Text it directly to feedback@onthewater.com. And then we'll be able to play your question on the podcast and actually hear your voice instead of guessing at your Instagram handle and what it might mean. I think we'll probably hear back from Infinite Jester.
Insane Jester.
Insane Jester,
yeah.
Yes. Maybe he's Insane Clown Posse fan or something. Who knows?
Could be. Fellow Juggalo.
The On the Water podcast is brought to you by Guidesley. Hey, charter captains, are you tired of pouring all your money and time into all the stuff that comes with running a charter business other than the actual fishing? Guidesley gets it. That's why they created Guidesley. Guidesley is built for guides, and they understand and solve the unique challenges that you face every day. Let Guidesley handle your book of business from technology to customer management, leaving you to handle the fishing. Become a guide on Guidesley.com and download the Guidesley Pro app today. Focus on what you do best, putting customers on the fish, and leave the rest for Guidesley to handle. Welcome to the On the Water podcast. The On the Water podcast is brought to you by Guidesley. Are you looking to book a fishing trip with a renowned, hand-picked expert? Guidesley has the best guides and the best destinations. Whether you've never fished before or you're a regular, take the guesswork out of it and allow their guides to put you on the best catches of your life. Search and book your dream trip now on Guidesley.com. Download the app, Guidesley Fishing Trips. We are the On the Water podcast. I got Jimmy Fee, and speaking of renowned captains, we got one of the best bottom fishing captains, Captain Jeff Viamari of Bad Influence Sport Fishing with us today. And we're excited to dig into a lot of bottom dwelling topics.
Oh, yeah, especially Fluke, man. I know we're probably, by the time this goes out, Fluke season will have started in a lot of the Northeast. But, Jeff, your Fluke season starts when? June?
It opens mid-May. There's Fluke. We used to have a great early season Fluke fishery mid-May down like off Falmouth and Elizabeth Islands and stuff. But I tend not to start fluking off Nantucket till like the first week in June. Honestly, if it was in a perfect world, I'd start a little later. But, it is what it is. People want to go. The business is there. And as fisheries change and regulations change, as a business owner, I need to change my business model and kind of adjust with the time. So, the big hit we've taken is the loss of sea bass. So as those trips don't become as high in demand and the Fluke are high in demand, you modify your model and you kind of just... you do what's there and you get off the dock, but the only thing is in June, the weather pattern's not set up yet. So, be lucky to fish 2 to 4 days a week. And, my golf game gets really good in June. So, we're good. We're good.
So your season, we're right on the cusp of it now. You just started haddock fishing.
Yeah, so I did my first haddock. I try to start haddock fishing, God willing, around April 15th. But as we know, being a boat owner and a business owner, there's a lot of startup costs and startup projects and so on and so forth. So we found a few gremlins, when we were getting the boat ready. So my launch date got delayed a little bit, but did my first trip Monday, slow fishing, but it was the first trip. But at the end of the day, persistence prevailed. We put a limit together, which was great. And, looking forward to some good weather coming up here, getting off the dock, because I'll be haddock fishing till about May 20th, right before sea bass opens. And then, I'm fishing out of Plymouth now, which is great. It's nice to have the opportunity to be a transient up there. And thank you, Safe Harbors, for a little shameless plug for having me, which is great because, my business model is I fish out of 3 different ports. So to have partnerships in this industry and is great because, as we all know, a lot more people are getting into boating after COVID, as you can see from the price of boats and everything. So access to the water is like becoming extremely tough.
Yeah.
Extremely tough. And then, of course, most marinas just want the people that use their boats for cocktail boats and don't leave at 4 a.m. or anything like that.
That always kind of threw me for a loop because those guys are actually going out more. They're dinging their props. They need more service. They need more fuel. I would rather that type of customer that's going to bring more, repeat business or ongoing business into the marina.
Absolutely. The biggest gripe I have in my marina, you just got to leave a little later so I don't wake up the people in the morning and stuff. That's the biggest issue we have.
Early.
Yeah, really. Why they're still awake, so.
Exactly.
No, but it's good. It's
But
good.
2/3 of the marinas should love you because that's 2 shoulder seasons that you take at the end of your season and the beginning of your season that their marina is empty for.
Absolutely. So I've been lucky to be doing this kind of like, hop, skip, and jumping around. So I've built some good relationships with people, and they like having me. I be respectful, which is great, and it allows me to stay in business longer because it's the only way I'm going to survive. My goal is not to go back to corporate America. So anything to prevent that, we're going to make it happen.
That's why we're all sitting at this table.
So you start your season in Plymouth,
Yep.
move to Yarmouth on Cape Cod.
So I moved to Yarmouth on Cape, like right around the start of sea bass, and then around like October, like right around Columbus Day, I moved the boat to Newport because that's honestly when they'd have me. If I could, in a perfect world, I'd move a little earlier, but being a transient, you got to kind of go with the flow, and I'll fish out of the Cape till then, and then I'll get down to Newport and start the fall blackfish season. So yeah, which is great, and that's my favorite time of year. So
I prepared a lot of questions for this one, and most of them have to do with Fluke. I'm sure you're surprised. You probably got Fluke phone calls throughout the year. But I'm going to jump right into it, man. My first question is, Nantucket Shoals really seems to have blown up in popularity, I want to say, over the last 10 years. Is that probably fair to say?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say as social media has become more prevalent and popular, you've seen the fishery just kind of come to the forefront. It's always been there. I worked on a head boat. I've worked on boats since I was 12, and that was my summer job. So, I've been fluking on Nantucket Shoals. I was 16, 17 years old, and back then I had no idea like how special it was because
if that's your baseline, I can't imagine fluke fishing anywhere else.
So, that 16, 17 years old, and to see like multiple fish get caught like the size of totes. I was like, oh, that's cool. I was some punk college kid that just was happy to be out on a boat and go fishing and so on and so forth. And then it was one boat doing it, and then maybe 2, like some of the boats out of Montauk coming and doing that stuff on their way back from George's.
Yeah, I first heard about it. I lived on Cape Cod for 2 years and hadn't known about it until I was on the Viking out of Montauk. And it was on a winter tile fish trip. And they're like, so how often do you get to Nantucket Shoals for fluke? I'm like, I've never been. They're like, you need to go. Like, come on this boat. I'm like, well, no, I'll just go down the road to Hyannis. I'm not going to drive to Montauk for it.
Well, that's what it is. And a lot of people knew about it, but they didn't know about it because this is back in the day when, you'd wait for, the report to come in the paper. You'd read the paper reports, and you'd get that weekly magazine that would have your local fishing reports from these captains that you only knew them from reading the reports. Not like I can pull out my phone right now, scroll through a feed, and I know what Kane Bounds just did in Maryland, and you didn't have to hear it through 10 different things, because the access to information has been good, but it's been bad, So when I started my business, I was I just left corporate America. I'm like, I got a wife, I got a young kid, and I went to fishing shows. That's how you got your name out there. You went to fishing shows, and then it was old grassroots word of mouth type stuff, and that's how the business boomed. But then eventually you get Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Twitter and all these other things. So I can put up a report right now when I want to, and then it can get seen by 4,000 people in a blink of an eye. So I think that's allowed the fishery to become more popular. And then, of course, too, like anything else with technology, everyone's got nicer, newer boats. They have access to the grounds that they didn't have before. And like anything else, popularity is a good thing. And it's a great fishery. And you know, I'm lucky to have my little piece of it. So
with all those boats out there, a lot more pressure on it. I asked you this on your boat a couple years ago. Why hasn't the state record been topped out there yet?
I think they stay more south.
The bigger ones?
If you follow a few commercial fishing pages on Facebook and stuff, and you'll see them, those guys land the big fish in the nets, you know, down cultivator and stuff like that, like the mecca of, you know, supposedly of Fluke in his cultivator. But like anything else,
another one of my questions.
Like anything else, it's the right time and the right place. You know, it's, you know, like I was lucky enough 2 years ago, we had that 16.7, and you know that was like, wow, massive. But with all the I honestly think they're there, and like anything else, like with a big blackfish, they're gonna bite when they want to bite, and who knows, maybe they're getting picked off before they come to us, you know, because right now, as fisheries change recreationally, commercially, we're seeing a lot more pressure on the fluke in the wintertime with the draggers. So that you know, everyone's like, oh, the pressure. You know, don't get me wrong, there's been more pressure on our fishery, but with a bag limit of 5 fish per day, 30 fish on a boat, maybe, how much can you really take compared to, you know, like a commercial boat? Because a lot of the boats now are buying the North Carolina and Virginia commercial fluke permits, which is 10,000 pounds a trip, leaving from ports not in North Carolina, Virginia, going to the canyons, getting their poundage, and then driving there and unloading them and selling them. So that's become popular over the past 5 to 7 years. And then personally, I think it has a direct correlation to why we're not seeing the biomasses we've seen in the past. But, you know, we can speculate all we want. Yeah. Maybe, you know, they're fish. They have tails. They move around. We've seen the striped bass and the bluefish change their patterns. Like a few years ago, we didn't have any bluefish. But if you went offshore tuna fishing, that's where the bluefish were. You know, so, you know, they change. The bait change. Water temps change. You know, bait changes. They follow the bait. They're predatory fish. So like anything else, you know, maybe as anglers and as a captain, I gotta stare at the chart a little more and kind of get out of my comfort zone and do it. This year, do I want to do it when fuel is going to be $5 to $6 a gallon? Maybe not, but you know, in the future,
go for the layups.
You know? Yeah, exactly. Go for the tried and true. You know.
Yeah. So the state record of Massachusetts is 20 pounds.
Yeah.
And that was off Noman's Island. That wasn't even at Nantucket Shores.
Noman's used to have phenomenal fluke fishery, and like my buddy Eric on the Bounty Hunter, that he ground his teeth in there, and over at Buzzards Bay Tower and stuff, they used to have them. My buddy Willie at the Brickyard in the Brickyard off the Vineyard there, there used to be a great spot for big fluke. And then, like anything else, there's a lot more pressure on the inshore fluke fishery now because those guys couldn't drag cod up north anymore. Then they got the multi-species permits for the state water. So, you know, like anything else, it's tough to see the inshore fluke fishery kind of dwindle because, you know, early season, like I was saying earlier, early season in May, I used to be able to do a sea bass trip, run over to the Vineyard, get my sea bass, and then run off of Falmouth right here. Hedge fence, I could drift over the rip, catch all of the 17, 18-inch fluke I want. You know, get a nice quick limit of nice eaters and have a nice bag, nice mixed bag. And you can do it now, but the fish are all 13 and 14 inches. So, you know, once again, is it the bait? Is it the changing patterns? Who knows? You know, and of course, too, fluke had become very popular for sushi market too. You know, that's a huge draw now. Is a lot of the guys commercial fishing for them are treating them better than ever because it's such a high profitable fish for the sushi.
I didn't realize. Like I've eaten them myself and prepared them myself, and you've prepared it for us one time on the ride back from a trip. But I didn't know. I've never seen it in a restaurant before.
Oh no! So if like one of my favorite restaurants, you go down to Inaho, Fluke Sushi's on the menu like all the time, and then it all goes to New York City. Yeah. You know, you go to New York City, you go to the cities. It's there. It's popular. It's prevalent. And honestly, the best part of Fluke Sushi is what we use for bait. The Fluke rind is actually the best fattiest.
The ribbons.
Yeah, the ribbons. Yeah. So that's like the best sushi there is. So. You know, but like anything else, you know, it is what it is.
Funny story, funny aside. We had a trip with you. We had a great trip, caught a ton of big fluke, and you were saying, like, take one of these fluke, leave it whole, bring it to a restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
And you recommended the restaurant.
Yep.
So we went about it incredibly poorly. Like, Kevin Blinkoff, who's the editor-in-chief, called ahead of time, got somebody who was too low on the totem pole there to make that decision. He goes, I have a whole fluke. I was told that if I bring it, you'll prepare it for me. Yeah. He walks in with this fish in a hefty bag through the front door and got chased out of there. They like shoot him out. Then Cheech and I Cheech and I tried 2 more restaurants with the same fish. This is the most well-traveled Fluke after it died. We took him 2 more restaurants, finally made some sort of like back alley deal.
Yeah.
Where he's like, yep, come. The guy looked.
He looks in our cooler. He goes, can we have whole sea bass? And we were like, we will give you some whole sea bass.
Take whatever you want. Just make a feast. And he like looks at it. He like looks at the guys behind him and then nodded. The 2 guys behind him grabbed the fish. He goes, come back 5:30. It's like, oh, okay.
That's the best way, you know, and if you know your local restaurant and you have that type of relationship with them, maybe bring them a few extra as a little thank you for doing it. And, you know,
And leave them whole.
Exactly.
Leave them whole because they don't want your fillets.
No, God, no. They want, you know, you get it with that spicy basil ginger sauce on it with the crispy skin and the sea bass too. It's something, it's one of those things like I've tried at home, but you can never replicate it.
Yeah.
You know, so I feel like
something with the woks they use or something like that. They just get like this crazy finish on it.
It's awesome. And if you have that relationship with a local restaurant, I highly recommend doing it with a Fluke or a sea bass. Just make sure you don't walk through the front door, right?
Yeah, and not with it in a trash bag while people are trying to eat there. You know. But yeah, a lot of states do the catch and cook, like hook and cook, bring it in there. I wish Massachusetts did.
It's like the biggest like faux pas for Cape Cod. You know, like all my customers come from out of state, so. From a socioeconomic thing, they're staying in the hotels, they're eating in the restaurants, they're buying the gas. They're, you know, granted, if we could find a coffee shop that opens before 5 a.m. on the Cape, I'd be a happy man. But there's so many, like they have this bag of fresh fillets, and I tried to talk to them, they just won't do it. And I don't know if it's a health code thing or this, but oh man, if we had a hook and cook here, it would be.
They'd clean up.
Oh my God, like you'd have 6 guys every night going in there. Here you go. You could still charge them $10, $11 for some fries and coleslaw that cost you $2, you know, and some flour to bread it. The fish are clean, they're filleted, they're ready to go. And that's one of the things I think, like, the Cape is such a popular fishing destination. I don't think they've really embraced it restaurant-wise. Like, everybody here I find is like tunnel vision. Here's what we do, here's how it's going to be, and this is what we're going to do. If they could think out of the box a little bit, like, because every time I get down to the Keys in the winter,
every other restaurant in Key West.
Oh my God, you know, you Key West, Island, you just drive on the corner. Here, I got some fresh snapper fillets. Oh yeah, sure, I can cook it 10 different ways for you. Which one do you like? And it's like, you know, because they'd rather have your business, you know. So that'd be like, oh man, if that could happen, that'd be phenomenal. But like you said, like, you know, even though the Cape is a big fishing place, they don't, like, you know. A lot of the hotels, they're more towards the family tourists and stuff. They're not embracing the,
it's more than food. It's like you go to the ramps down in Florida. You go, it's insane. They have washdown stations. They're like newly paved. They're well manicured. Taking this trash bag.
Oh, there's no access. So the Cape has done, you know, like they like Bass River. They build like Bass River used to have fillet stations on that boat ramp, and like, because for certain fish, I can't skin them all the way, and I can't do that stuff. And if I do, you know, I'm getting tickets and so on. So I try to tell my customers where to go. Well, they're like, where can we go for a fillet station? I'm like, the back of your hotel, you know, skin it on your truck bed in the parking lot, and I'll clean it up for you in the morning. There's no, like, they haven't embraced that. There's no, you know, don't get me wrong, to have the fish piers is nice, but, you know, have a special receptacle. Exactly. There's nothing.
Catered to our sport.
There's nothing, and to get a nice boat ramp too. There's only a few nice boat ramps, you know. So it's like, I don't know. I think they're definitely dropping the ball on that stuff. You know, that would be nice just as a whole to provide, because there's a lot of people that come down, fish the canal, fish the outer Cape beaches, you know, and then of course, you know there is a hotel. I think the Tidewater has a cleaning station in the back, because a lot of my customers stay there. But that's just out of a product necessity, because they cater to a lot of fishermen. Yeah. So
otherwise, it's happening in the bathtub.
Exactly. So I'd rather have it outside and in the trash barrel than in the bathtub, you know, if I was a hotel owner. But, you know.
So before the fish reach Nantucket Shoals, where are those fish? Where are they coming from?
They're on the canyons. They're on the canyons hanging out. They're bedding in the mud. You know, a lot of the fluke actually end up, like, if you talk to some of the monkfish guys, the gill netters out of like Rhode Island and stuff, they get a lot of big fluke in the monk gill nets and stuff. So basically, they're in the mud hole. They're just bedded down in the mud, kind of just you know, doing their thing and waiting, a little bit of eating and stuff, and then they're out. You know, they're in the mud hole. They're out to the canyons. That's where they drag them in the winter, is out in the flats and the canyons and stuff. So, you know, and then they make their migration in, and, you know, I don't know a lot about the spawning aspect of it. You know,
I think
where they do spawn and
when
stuff.
they spawn like during their migration. Because I read this for an article I was doing a couple years ago. So they're fall spawners, but there's not like one big. They don't aggregate in one area. It's like as they're heading off.
So it's
shore,
not like
they
the
spawn.
scup that come into Hyannis and they're all ready to go, or the sea bass and stuff. Like when I clean them, like you'll see the ones with the eggs and stuff. And so, like you said, is it one of these things that it's a completely fluid situation? Is there a group of spawning fish? Is there not spawning fish? But you know, I see fluke with eggs in them when I cut them, and you can tell when you see them. But you know, I probably should, you know, get a little more scientific on that one. You know, but
Has there been any tagging of the fluke out at the shoals?
so there's one group that does it, the Littoral Society. That's more of like a
It's like a citizen science group.
exactly. So it's nothing. You know, you can call them up. You can get a tag case and do that. Anybody can do it. I know there's some people doing it in Rhode Island for blackfish and stuff. Honestly, I thought about doing it, but at the end of the day, you know, I'm a one-man band. I don't take a mate. I do everything myself. So it's like, how many hats can I wear? How much can we do? Because you know what it'll be like. It'll be like I'll be sitting there trying to tag a fish and get a measurement, and next thing you know, Joe
someone's
Angler
got
comes
a
up
monster.
with the fish of a lifetime and
Tries to swing it.
yeah, or
Bounces it off
doesn't
the
swim
side
it
of the boat.
or doesn't swim it properly, and the next thing you know, it's my fault. So, you know, I'd love to do that for research, and hopefully, you know, down the road when I can find a mate, someone that, you know, can handle my type A personality.
I was just going to ask that. You're one of
I've
the
seen
few
you in action, man.
one of the few outfits that is legitimately a one-man band, and it's refreshing. It's cool. You know what you're getting every time, which is awesome. But why did you decide to go that way? Is it not finding that right person to spend every, you know, hour you're working with, or is it?
Honestly, I'm 38 years old. I can still do it. Yeah. So if I can still do it, I'm going to do it as long as I can. And then honestly, too, you know, I've thought about expanding my business to try to get a bigger boat, to try to get that inspected boat. But, you know, like with everything that's going on in the country now, job shortages, how am I going to find the right person that will complement what I do, the product I deliver, and so on and so forth. So it's, you know, I have some friends that help out from time to time, but they have other jobs. And excuse me, as a business owner, do I want to take on an employee with benefits and this and that? And honestly, right now, I don't. I'd rather just, you know,
do it yourself.
If I can do it, and then, you know, like anything else, you know, honestly, my mate is the autopilot. You know, so as long as the autopilot's working, the mate shows up for work. We're good. You know, so I can do a lot of stuff. Like you've seen me, I try to multitask. So when we're fishing, I'm cutting fish, and we're doing this, and I'm doing that, and you know, and honestly, it's just been trial and error to try to find that right way to do stuff and how to effectively do it, and still maintain the level of service that. It's not like I'm sitting in the chair watching guys fish and they're netting the fish themselves or tying the rigs.
It's impressive to see unfold when you're used to, you know, at least a captain and mate, you know, dynamic. It's impressive to see that nothing falls off, nothing changes, and it's just you out there.
It keeps me going. I enjoy it. I'm still there, and you know, maybe someday when the right guy presents him or herself, or woman, male, I don't care. You know, I got my 2 kids. I got 2 boys, 9 and 7, and they've been spending more time on the boat, and eventually maybe one of them will come help me out.
One of them will probably be your first mate.
Exactly, and then I can yell at them all I want, you know, as a boss, and go from there. But you know, and then honestly too, a lot of the guys, you know, you'd be amazed at how many people can't cut a fish. So I've taken
probably one in this chair right here, but
I've taken people that, you know, quote unquote, you know, fishermen and stuff, but like. When it comes to cutting a fluke, how many people can really cut a fluke and cut a fluke well?
I have to do the 4 fillets.
Exactly. So if I'm going
to let's go with that.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. So if I'm going to take someone, I need someone to cut as well as I cut.
Yeah.
So I'm not sitting there. Why would I? If you can't cut, why am I going to take you?
And
you
as
know?
efficiently, because there's like you get as much meat as possible.
Yeah. It's
in
a marvel
in a
to
short
see.
time, because otherwise you don't want to sit at the dock for another
Oh,
hour
God, no.
after you get back.
No, I got a long enough ride as it is. The only benefit of maybe taking the mate will just be like, boop, see you later. I got somewhere to go. You know, because you know it is when you hit the dock, your job never ends. You got to clean the boat. You got to do all the other stuff, get ready for the next day. But that's one thing I'm finding too, though. There's people that want to help, but it's like I don't have time to try to train someone, because at the end of the day, if I can do it myself and do it better, I'd rather just, like I said, train my kids And then if they can do it, great. If not, at least they can watch the wheel on the way in, and I'm not out. You know, I have such a small margin anyway to make a living. Why am I going to take someone else to take from that? So, but hopefully, you know, it'd be nice to, like you said, this goes in, like, you know, some programs to teach kids how to be mates, how to fish and stuff, which would be kind of cool. But you know, but that's how it goes. Like there's not, like I remember when I was 12, I started working on a head boat. You know, there's not many 12-year-olds that want to go work on boats now. You know, they want to do this stuff. You know, like I started here as a summer kid. And it was like, you want to spend the summer here, you get a job.
Yeah.
So I went to work on a boat, and I still got the cut on the hand to prove it when I was 12. You know, so yeah, I learned at a young age. And like you said, in order for me to have my mate, it's I got to train someone. You know, and that'll be my kids.
I hadn't considered that, like, the job shortages had hit really fishing. You know what I mean? You see it in, I mean, the Dunkin' Donuts across the street from me was out of operation because they couldn't find people to man it. And I guess it didn't occur to me that there would be that same thing happening with mates. And
exactly, it's like anything else in this world. And for us, it's to have an employee. There's no days off. You know, so it's like, all right, if we're going to work 14 days in a row, you need to work 14 days in a row. And to find someone like that, like a right-hand person that you can rely on like that, that's
almost impossible.
Exactly.
In a
So
shallow pool there, man.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, and there's a lot of guys that I know that are from like New York, New Jersey that are great deckhands, but they don't want to move to the Cape. Christ, cost of living here. How are they going to afford to come down and work for 8 months when people that work here full time already can't find places to stay? So it's
plus everything closes at 7:00 p.m. You know?
and opens at 5. You know, trying to find that early cup of coffee is like pulling teeth. So you know,
But a lot of your clients are from New York and New Jersey. Like,
all of them.
Really?
I'd say 96% of my clients are.
Is there not the local interest in Fluke?
No, I wouldn't take a local person.
No. Well, I get,
to be honest
that.
with you. but
We're in rare company then.
but you know, the Flukian and the Blackfish, all that stuff, that became popular down there. You know, those guys
has a bigger following.
Absolutely. You know, you go out to the Jersey Reef on a weekend, there's 300-400 boats fishing the Jersey Reef, and those guys have always fluked, and then they brought their knowledge of fluking up to here, because always on the Cape, it was always, when I was growing up, it was striped bass, bluefish, and then bluefin tuna. There was very few guys blackfished. Nobody blackfished.
Only fluke caught were on wire
yeah, exactly. We're jigging through the rips, and oh my God, I got a fluke.
12-pound fluke on this bucktail.
Exactly. Oh, what's that? Oh, okay. You know, exactly. So,
gross.
You know, they've really, you know, educated me, and then about fisheries and demand and so on and so forth. So all my customers, like I said, you know, New York, New Jersey, I get a few guys from Pennsylvania, group from Connecticut. And then I have a few local guys that I can call, like if I need a spot filled or something, that'll come. But mostly it's guys that are traveling, you know. So not a lot of local guys. And a lot of the local guys now, it goes into the technology and stuff. They all have boats, you know, or friends with boats and ways to get out there now, where in the past it was, you know, null and void.
Yeah, I mean, for a while, when this first started getting as popular as it is now, you were the only six-pack doing it, right?
It was myself and Joe Huck, and that was a while ago. And then now all of a sudden it's
every Tom, Dick, and Harry's out there.
I blame
no comment on that one.
I blame the lack of the early summer bluefin that we used to have. Like,
yeah,
you could
so
count June 10th, there'd be bluefin off.
Oh no, absolutely, and you'll see out on the shoals, you'll see the amount of boats dissipate once the bluefins start getting caught. You know, because there's a lot of guys now that are running boats for other people that are bringing their owners out there, and you see the 70-foot Vikings out there fluke fishing. It's like, what?
It's wild, right?
It's like, come on, you know. And the thing is now, and this goes into the technology too. Those spots, like, nobody knew where we were, but now you can tune up your radar. Oh, there's someone. Let me go short drift him. Oh, let me jump on his drift, and oh, I caught a big one. I'm so great, you know. So hence why I'm not a fan of some technology, but that's how it goes. And honestly, though, as a captain, as an owner, you got to get a little more creative, more spot specific. You got to fish a little harder. It's not long gone are the days where I can set it on a drift for 2 miles, catch the whole way, and, you know, happy go lucky. And
it was like that, though?
Oh, dude, it was stupid. It was good fishing. You know, it was and honestly, fishing's changed.
You do have to work for them, but
it is not as simple as just
like that.
Putting up like Nantucket shoals in the GPS. And
No.
There's
for my 10 pounds.
Those are the expectations now. Though.
Exactly. Honestly, you know what? I when I first started, I didn't know the spots that I fish now. I learned grinding my teeth in other spots where the fish weren't even there that I didn't even know about. I didn't even know where we go now early. I never knew that. I never went that far. I grinded locally, you know, and I learned little nooks and crannies, and then eventually as the boat got bigger and, you know, I had a little more chutzpah behind me, I went out and explored a little more, you know. So, you know, in spots where we used to have them phenomenally, they're not there anymore. You know, so the spots people know now where they've been, they might not be there in a few years. They might have moved west or east or north.
Deck
you know,
constantly shuffles.
And you've
Absolutely.
got a logbook full of places.
Oh man, I the amount of money I've spent exploring and learning and finding edges and mussel beds and all these other little spots that, you know, that have produced for me, you know. But then too, though, there's good spots that have no fish, but could it be the tide? Could it be the moon? Could it be the water temp? Could it be the bait? And it's such a vast area that if you don't have your finger on the pulse, it's over. You know,
They move and shift around by the week. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
By the day.
They're chasing bait. They're like anything else, just like a migratory bass or bluefish or anything tuna. They're moving, and you know, if you don't know where they go or where they've been or where they might go, or you know, it's like anything else. You just got to you got to reset yourself and kind of, like you said, access the archives, as I call it. Go through the log. I keep 6-7 years of logbooks on the boat. So I'm like, all right, if they're not here today, where were they this date 4 years ago? What's the water temp? What's this? So, you know, and that's also one of the things too. I never used to keep a log when I was younger.
That's such a great argument for keeping a log of.
You know?
Look at the water temperature and then the
absolutely.
locations that those years back, dude.
Absolutely.
Trying to match it back up.
I'm writing spots, this and that. What was the colors? You know, just little, like, you know, granted, you know, I got dirty hands, but it's messy. But just any little bit of information is key. Just like, you know, you guys repurpose content and do all these articles and this and that. So as a fisherman, you got to go back to, like I said, the archives, and I got to see, all right, what was I doing here? What was I doing there? All right, well, they haven't been there in 2 years. Maybe they're there now. All right, so let me check, you know, and
You check and you're like, oh man, they're back.
Oh yeah, I did that last year.
That's a good feeling.
I did a check on something I hadn't fished in like 3 years last year, and it was like, woo, okay.
Look what I left to percolate.
Yeah, it's like one of those things like, whoa, okay, all right, one pass and I'll see you later. So, you know, but it like anything else, you know, you just you can't be tunnel visioned. You got to broaden your horizon. You got to think out of the box. And
Yeah, as soon as you have it figured out, it changes.
oh, absolutely, that's a God-given right. You know, so
Which is what makes it awesome.
How much did the shoals themselves change? Like, is there a lot of shifting out there? Like,
you know, maybe in the shallows and stuff. You know, like where the tidal, you know, where the rips are and stuff, and they're changing and they're getting higher and lower. Some of the bottoms changed a little bit, like some of the spots that used to be hard bottom and now a little softer. You know, and the tough thing for me is one of the things that I wish one of the things I wish I had a mate for is, you know, like when we're fishing, I like to grab a customer's rod and kind of, you know, reassure myself that it's still here or this, you know what I mean? Feel, you know, kind of get a feel for what's going on because I don't pick up a rod. So I'm like, I can't feel the bottom and stuff. And sometimes I get sidetracked. And sometimes though, you know, when you just kind of do the Ronco one, the set it and forget it drift, sometimes you find some new spots too. So that's kind of cool, you know, so.
I mean, you mentioned rods. So what's an ideal Nantucket Shoals Fluke setup look like? I know, you've got some really nice ones on the boat. I've dropped some of your.
Do you want to know what the internet says or my opinion? No, I'm just kidding. So my customers, they come prepared for everything, and I recommend bringing a spinning rod because even though most of the times we have tide, sometimes we have weak tides or slack tide. So always have something ready to throw a bucktail. Always have something ready to go. Then I like to have a rod that can fish 8 to 12 ounces comfortably. So, but like fish 8 to 12 ounces the right way, not like, oh, I think it can fish 8 to 12 ounces. So, and then also you're going to need something that can fish 12 plus because there's the days where you got to break out the codfish lead and you're drifting crazy. So, you know, I like a custom rod. So, you know, I do a lot of, I like the Rod Geeks is a real nice rod, the 732, 34. 33, 34. I've got a United Composite 701. L is another nice one.
Now, are they more moderate actions? Or?
Yeah, they're more moderate actions. So they still have a soft enough tip, but they'll shut down because when you're drifting 2 knots with 14 ounces of lead and a poison tail on each hook and a fluke belly and a gulp. So even though you're fishing 12 ounces of lead, you probably have, 16 ounces on there. So, and you're drifting, you got to be able to set the hook. So it's got to have enough chutzpah to hold it, and that's my big thing is like I see a lot of guys trying to fish too soft the rods and they're missing fish.
I made that mistake my first time on your boat. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be so much fun to pull on these big doormat with this little super, light noodle that I just picked up for a stupid number. Yeah. And then you're like, I dropped a couple fish and he's like, Cheech, get over here. He's like, fish this rod. And I'm like,
oh, yeah, I remember that.
All right. So I put that rod down and picked that one up and I'm like, you can instantly just feel everything so much better. The hook set's so much more, there.
Oh, absolutely.
Present.
Oh, yeah. No, I remember that. That was
like,
that was my black and red Rod Geek 732.
Yeah,
it made the cover of the magazine.
Yep, that's exactly what that was.
I remember that day. Oh, yeah. But
and you put me onto the poison tails,
Oh,
which one of the greatest finds ever.
oh yeah, no. So I'm lucky enough to be out there all the time, so I can see what rods have worked well. And honestly, what I tell people is, what rod do you use for black fishing? What do you use for black fishing? What's your bait rod? What are you fishing 8 ounces of lead with black fishing? Because those are your stiffer rods, because you have the potential to catch a big blackfish. You got to have enough backbone to get that fish out of the rocks. Kind of the similar concept fluking, because you got to be able to set that hook with a drift, with the weights. So there's a lot of good rods out there. Basically, anything that can legitimately hold 8 to 12, 12 to 16. I had Chris from Tsunami is a good friend of mine. He brought those new ones that they're calling them slow pitch rods, but they're not. That 7.6 extra heavy rod. That's a great rad. That's price point. It's like $110.
It's got a great feel. We use that on At the Rail.
Yeah. So you guys had that. That's a great rod for $100. Shimano makes nice rod. Basically it's just go and feel it for yourself. A lot of people now are getting bad advice on the internet, in these forums and these groups and everything else. My recommendation is, if you want to get a rod, go to your local rod builder. Go to your local tackle store. Pick stuff up. Try it.
Yeah, and tell them what you're going to do with it, because that was the biggest difference. Like, being able to fish and feel like you're in control and have good feel when you have 12 to 14 or 16 ounces of lead on the bottom of that, it changes what that rod does inshore.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
Absolutely. Anything you think just kind of like push it to the side. Go try stuff out, because you can buy stuff online and Tom from the forum and Joe's and Bill's, they all recommend this one, but they may not fish the same way as you. Everybody fishes differently. And I know there's a lot of great rods out there, and there's a lot of great recommendations. There's some small companies, large companies. Everybody makes a good product, but you got to find the right product for you. How do you fish? Do you fish under your shoulder? Do you fish two-handed? How do you set the hook? You do like a slow lift or a stiff? So it's you just got to find the one for you, not the one that 10 people on the internet recommended. Take that recommendation, find your local dealer, your local store, and then go try it. Put the reel on you want to fish it with. See how it balances. Does it feel good in your hands? Will it be able to do what you need it to do? 'Cause that's the big thing. Because I have some customers that half the boat's using 8 ounces. One of them likes fishing heavy lead. He'll fish 16, but he's got the right rod for it. So,
got the right rod for it. He's got the right braid for it.
Exactly. So a lot of people, exactly. So,
8 ounces.
Yeah, and then someone can fish 8 ounces real well. So it's just, find what works for you and go with it. Listen to the internet. Get your opinions out there. Read the articles, read the reviews, but go pick it up. Don't just buy it sight unseen. Go to the fishing shows. The fishing shows, everyone's got the rods at the fishing shows. Go pick them up. Go try it. Go feel it for yourself before you buy it. My favorite thing to do is go to the rod builder. I'm very lucky. A lot of my customers have like phenomenal rods, so I get to test like the prototype of this, the prototype of that, and which one do I like. And I think I got like 8 custom rods now that I've just bought for the hopes of the day when I do take a mate and I can use them. So, so I've been, kind of adding to my collection slowly. But talk to a rod builder. That's another good option is they can the best, and there's rod builders that will build you a $1,500 rod, but there's rod builders that will build you a $500 rod. You know, it's but they can make it to fit you. Yeah. It all goes to what level, how deep down the rabbit hole do you want to go, and what will your wife let you do? So,
dude, Fluke guys especially seem to go so deep.
They are
down.
nuts with it.
So I have a customer. He has like so many nice custom rods, and I'm lucky. Like a lot of these rod builders fish with me. It's amazing what these guys can do with a fishing rod, like the builders themselves. The grips, the inlays, like feather inlays. There's a guy that has custom grips with his that look like a brick wall, you know, and the bricks. But it is what you make of it. Like anything else in this world, it's if you want to spend the money on the fishing rods, there's guys that'll do it for you. You know, it's crazy. But
Fluke guys are super nuts with their gear. They're super dialed in with it. The really good ones, and it's like it's crazy the price tags of the combos that you see get on some of these well-known head boats and outfits like yourself. You know.
Oh, it's crazy, guys. Like when I started, you know, I used to let these guys they'd come down with their Jersey bucktails and all the weights and all this other stuff because you know they're used to losing gear and I have a strict policy now that it's almost like the TSA. I got to weigh their bags, you know, because they tend to bring too much stuff or like 3 rods a person. I got some guys that want to bring like 6 rods. It's like, guys, 3 rods a person. That's it, you know. But, you know, it's great. It's great to see because if they're bringing all this stuff, it means that they're supporting local businesses. They're buying stuff. And honestly, you know, if I had a bigger boat, they could bring more stuff. But I got a long ride, so I want to make sure I can get there in time.
So you run it down east. What tell us a little bit about the Bad Influence.
So I bought the Bad Influence, what was it, 6 years ago? So it's a 35 5 islands. I repowered it 5 years ago. I got a Cummins mechanical CTA in it. When I bought the boat, it had a split wheelhouse. And I'm like, this is kind of cool. I didn't really think anything of it because it was in my price range. It was a good looking boat. It was nice. And then, man, I'd say it's got a split wheelhouse on it. It's the best feature ever because when I fluke, I can get 6 guys on one side of the boat. Nobody has to fish under the boat. It minimizes tangles, which is awesome. And you know, it's one of those cool things that I never thought would be a cool feature, but it's nice to have. You know, so that's great. And then also too, you know, having the split wheelhouse is awesome because I can set, you know, when I go black fishing, I set 2 anchors. So I can set 2 anchors by myself from that haul station. Once again, when I bought the boat, things I didn't think would be awesome or kind of cool. And, you know, it's good. I was lucky enough last year to hook up with Humminbird, and I got all brand new Humminbird Apexes. So those have been, man, it's crazy with technology now and how that stuff has come. Like the stuff I can pick up on the bottom now with the chirps and the side. I never had side scan. This is like everyone's using it, you know. And I'm like, oh man, I'm kind of like late to the party. But now that I have it, like the technology is amazing. Their charts too, like the charts now. We have access to like they use Coastmaster their own charts. Like I found like 10 new blackfish spots last year just by like. Oh, that looks kind of cool. Let me check that. Or that looks kind of cool.
What was already on their charts,
yeah,
too?
But I didn't have, you know. So, like, I was using an older unit, and it was, like, you know, antiquated and stuff. And I'd look at Navionics at night on my phone.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, let me pick this. Absolutely. That looks cool. That looks cool. But now that I have it, like, in front of me, and then also, too, they got that auto chart live. So I'm, like, making my own charts when I'm fishing and stuff. And bottom hardness. And that was, like, the best investment I've made as a captain was to upgrade those electronics because with the side scan, I can pick up bait schools, I can pick up spots, you know, just like you guys had that TV show with Robbie, you know, and Robbie's like, oh, there's the bunker. Okay, here I go. I turn to right. So for me, it's like, oh, there's a new rock. Oh, there I go. Let me turn right. Or, you know, there's a school of bait. Or, you know, when I'm porgy fishing or sea bass, and they're like, oh, there's a school right there on the side. I would have never had access to that before. You know, my fish finder went straight down. You know, it's so. That's been huge, and I'm very happy to have those guys, you know, have confidence in me to represent their product and have it on the boat. And you know, you guys have done a lot of stuff with them. It's amazing how far that stuff has come, and that's probably the best upgrade I've made to the boat, you know, since I got it.
Did that kind of like not validate, but almost put things into perspective on spots that you've always fished that were super productive that like maybe answered like why it was?
No, exactly, because I can like do the down scan now and like find those little like edges and crane, you know, like kind of like blackfishing, like spots within the spot. So like I know where the rock is, but like, oh, look over here. There's a 5-foot drop, and with the double anchors, I can wiggle over 5 feet and like put the port side down this edge now that I would have never known was there, because you set the anchor. It's like, okay, you know, I ping the rock. I got my 4 or 5 waypoints around it and stuff, and like, here you go. But now it's like, oh man, if I can just slide over here a little bit, you know, this might be better. And it's something like a 5-foot adjustment, as you guys know, like it could make or break a day, or that's that big fish is sitting there.
Or it could unlock a spot that you've never caught him in because you haven't seen that little clue where it's like, oh, they're only
exactly
gonna be right there.
Exactly. So, you know, with the other stuff, you'd get on the spot and you just sit and, you know, all is well and good.
Oh,
but
this
now,
spot sucks. I'm never coming back here again. And there's like, you know,
I've done that
slobs
before.
right like 10 feet away.
Oh, exactly. Or there's a you know, like little crevice in the rock or something.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't pick up before because, you know, my old fish finder just showed, all right, we're on the rock. Here you go. And, you know, so that's the technology. I was happy.
Crazy.
It's amazing. It's a game changer for me, for sure.
The On the Water podcast is brought to you by Guidesley. Hey, charter captains, are you tired of pouring all your money and time into all the stuff that comes with running a charter business other than the actual fishing? Guidesley gets it. That's why they created Guidesley. Guidesley is built for guides, and they understand and solve the unique challenges that you face every day. Let Guidesley handle your book of business from technology to customer management, leaving you to handle the fishing. Become a guide on Guidesley.com and download the Guidesley Pro app today. Focus on what you do best, putting customers on the fish, and leave the rest for Guidesley to handle.
So we talked about rods,
Yeah.
reels. I know the one thing I know you like about reels is a power handle, because I was on your boat. I hooked a fish and could not. It had the stock double handle on the Shimano
Oh, yeah.
Calcutta.
I won't use the analogy I use for those kind of reels.
Use it. We want to hear it.
We can bleep it.
You know, your finger like turn like this. You know, it's like
All right, we'll bleep that.
exactly. So,
That's great. No, that's good. I like it.
You know. So
I don't think there'll be any mice out there that get offended by that.
I can be a little crude sometimes. So, you know, once again with technology and stuff, there's a lot of companies that have come out now with some nice level line, you know, bait caster styles with power handles. So a lot of my customers have been using like the Tranks. You know, Daiwa's got some nice ones that are out. So a lot of guys have been adding the power handles to those, which is nice. Or, you know, like anything else, just like a 300, 400 size reel. You know, a lot. You know, you could use a Daiwa Saltiga 10 or 15. You know, accurate. The 300 series turns or Valiants are perfect for that. You could use. A lot of guys are using the Shimano OSHA jiggers now that they're making them in the U.S. The 1500s.
It's a heavy duty reel for Fluke, man.
A lot of guys, you know, once again, it goes back to the rod thing. You know, this is a special place for people to come. So if you want to come, you just got to make sure you have the right stuff. You know, make sure, you know, you have the right line on. You know, a lot of my guys fish 30-pound braid. You know, find something that works for you. You can fish 40. But once again, if you're fishing that heavier braid, there's more resistance in the water. So if you can get, you know, like a lot of the braids now, you know, 30-pound braid breaks at what, 52 pounds, you know, and the good thing is like everyone's got their breaking strength now. You can go online and find the chart that says, all right, this brand breaks at this, and now there's like 9-strand, 10-strand, you know, they're you know, technology's been a good thing for that stuff. So the braid's becoming stronger, thinner, and when you're fishing thinner braid, you can get away with lighter lead and fish the rod you want to fish. So it's all part of that like big jigsaw puzzle of, you know, situational awareness and all right, if I use this, how does this work? But
yeah, you're putting the whole outfit together. Nothing
Exactly.
is independent of it. So like when you're choosing that rod, you have to think of using a lighter braid than you might be used
exactly,
to.
Exactly. So you know, like I said, go touch stuff, pick it up, feel it. How does the reel feel on the rod? You know, make sure you have a right reel that does have a power handle on it, you know, that you can get a turn on, you know, because when you do have that fluke, and more oftentimes than not, fluke or predators, they're going to attack your bait. They will pick your sinker and your bait up off the bottom and swim up with it. And if you're using something with a small little handle on it, or, you know, you can't keep up with it, you know, so make sure you're ready to go, and you know that, you know, I have the right one where I can take a turn or two to come tight on that fish, to set that hook. Because oftentimes they're not. If you're not coming tight on them, they already realize what's in their mouth, and they're going to spit it, and they're going to turn around. So, you know, have a good reel. Penn makes some good ones, the Fathoms, and once again, it's all personal preference. Every company out there makes a great product. Find one that works good for you.
Yeah, and every company makes a product for that specific use nowadays.
Exactly. No, absolutely.
You just got to know what is in that realm of options, and then figure it out from there. So
Exactly.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the proper way or your preferred way to fight a fluke once you've hooked it. Because
right.
we go back and forth about it in a kind of hilarious fashion at times.
So I can tell who's been striped bass fishing on my boat a lot.
Yeah.
So
The pumpers?
the pumpers,
Yeah.
exactly.
The
So the
pumpers.
pumpers, and they will get a stern talking to if they start pumping.
Yeah.
Once you get that fluke coming off the bottom, they're going to give you some massive head shakes. So the key is for me, it's just constant pressure. If you do want to pump them, it's like slow lift. Just keep them coming, and if you can't move them. But once you get them coming, just keep turning the handle. Don't, they're gonna make some head shakes. They're gonna make those, depending on the size of the fish, that head shake, can go from 45 degrees. They can really do some damage. But my big thing is just keeping it tight all the time and knowing when to lift, when to reel. Because I have some anglers that'll reel through the head shakes. And if you're reeling through the head shakes, you're putting, especially with the, going back to the reels things, with these reels, if your drag's not set properly or anything, and you're reeling through a head shake, you can rip it right out or anything else. So my big thing is just keeping constant pressure, letting your rod, let that rod you spent all that money on do the work sometimes. Just sit there and just slow reel them. And you got the head shakes, move the rod down, let the tip do its thing, but keep it tight. Never let it go slack. Always be ready to turn on it. I see all these guys trying to pump them, and they're lifting up too high. And if you lift that rod too high, you can't turn fast enough to drop the tip to make up for it.
And plus, whether it's a big jig or it's a bank sinker below it, it's just doing the it's kind of seesawing.
Exactly.
On it.
So you got to just keep it tight, plain and simple. You don't need to pump it like a striped bass or my big thing, just keep it tight, keep them coming, and just pay attention too, because there's so many guys and, all right, success, we hooked it, we made it to the boat, now what do I do? A lot of anglers don't know how to lay a fish out right too. They've taken some guidance, they brought the fish up, they fought it right, they've used the rod, and also too, I'm a firm believer in rod under the shoulder, because your arm acts as a shock as well. You got the guys that want to put the rods in their waist. The problem is you put the rod in the waist, there's no give. And if you don't have a soft tip or something to take those head shakes,
Under the shoulders is where it feels right.
bottom fish under the shoulders.
Yeah.
Use your arm as that natural shock too. If you're reeling hard, so your arm will have some give. And then when you get into the surface, know that fish is at the surface.
Yeah.
Know what's coming ahead of you.
What happens when they break the surface, Jeff?
You're SOL. That thing's gonzo. Then
Exactly.
you see a fluke swim backwards for the first time in your life, and they will swim backwards. But the key is, always look over the side when the fish is coming. Know what's coming. All right, where's my net man? Is my net man on my left side, my right side? Where's he going to be? All right, well, usually I like to stand on the left side of the anglers, because usually when we're drifting, that fish is going to come up in the tide, or he makes his circles. Exactly, or towards the bow. So I like to stand on the left side a lot too, because a lot of guys, God love them, they can't bring the fish to the net. So I'm dominant left-handed, so I want to hold the net in my left hand, and if they can't bring the fish to the net, I literally reach across them, grab that rod tip, and I'll rip that fish right into the net, and I'll turn them hard, because it could be a fraction of a second. If that thing gets on the surface, if he shakes his head, or someone's next to the angler, next to the guy reeling the fish, not paying attention. I had a guy one time bring up a monster fluke, and the guy next to him wasn't paying attention. Got tangled in him. Yeah. Thought he had a hit. When the fluke was coming up, boom, shook the fish right off. 10 pound plus. So guy lost a personal best because the guy next to him's not paying attention.
That's terrible.
How tense was it on the boat after that, man? Was it?
Well, there were some choice words. And I had some choice words too. So I take it personally when people lose fish, like that. It's one thing that the fish wins, but it's another thing when it could have been avoided because someone's not paying attention or that. So just pay attention, know which way the fish is going to go, because Fluke will make a big spiral like a tuna too.
Yeah.
And honestly too, sometimes you got to jump on the other side of them, get them, like when you're gaffing a tuna, you're like, all right, here's my shot.
Yeah.
You got that Fluke circling. All right, well, is he going to circle? And if I'm on the left side, I'm right side. So then you got to move quick and do that. And, the key is just keep them under the water. Keep them under the water like 6 inches. Keep them calm.
If it's brown, leave them down.
Exactly. And also, too, like how you see say you're pike fishing, or muskie fishing.
Yeah.
And you get your lure to the boat and like you figure eight it because
Yeah.
sometimes they follow it.
Yeah.
Do that with a fluke. You can swim a fluke at the boat.
Yep.
Okay? You take that rod, you keep them under the water, and you circle them around to keep them calm. The second you stop moving that fish and he just sits there goes the head shake.
Yep.
You're going to see a fluke swim backwards, and he's going to give you the international peace sign as he goes down to the bottom.
Jimmy had a great line one time. Nothing throws it in reverse better than a fluke.
Oh, absolutely. They are really true specimens when it comes to predators. They will attack. They will go backwards.
They're awesome fish.
Oh, yeah.
They're-
It was one of your fish I was netting where it was at the very end. I don't think it was one on the TV show. It was
No.
the year before where I went for it at the end and it backed, like it had the head of the net and made its way back out.
Oh yeah,
So-
that's
His chin
seriously.
hit the edge of the net, and he literally shot backwards.
That's why I grab the rod on these guys. I'll put the net under, and when you guys met on my boat, you see the size of the
Yeah.
nets I use.
Yeah.
I use like striped bass nets.
Yep.
Because, if God forbid something
Gives
does
you a little
happen-
margin for error. And
Exactly. No,
they're
and if
awkward fish.
someone can't get it to you or some situation, I
Yeah.
can scoop up and
Yeah.
you can fit a small child in this net. It's a straight bass net. But if that's what you got to do, it's what you got to do. Make sure you have the right, like anything else. We're talking rods and reels. Make sure you have the right tools too. Make
Yeah.
sure you have the right net. Something as simple that you don't think of as a net is one of your best tools.
There's absolutely nothing worse in the realm of fluke fishing than finding out that you forgot the net when you're going fluking. That is the most horrifying
I have three
thing.
nets on the boat.
Yeah.
So I always have 2 nets ready to go because multiple hookup. Sometimes too, you have fish on. What happens if someone gets stuck in the net?
Yeah.
Be ready to go. What
Grab
happens
another
if
one.
a fish comes through and the next thing you know, your basket opens up and so I
Yeah.
I have 3 nets on the boat at all time, ready to go just because you can never what am I going to do? Start gaffing these things?
Yeah, right.
And we all know how well that goes. So
We've kind of established that you take it easy, constant pressure, rod under the arm, use your
Yeah.
arm to give a little,
slow and steady.
Yep,
Just slow and steady, consistent. Don't feel that you need to do these big, lift up, drop down.
Yep.
And then if you are going to pump, just make sure you're ready to turn the handle when you do drop the rod and drop. So I tell the
before
customers,
you even
drop
start
drop
dropping
slow, real fast.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of guys that'll drop the rod. Next thing you know, that nice bend you have goes flat.
Yeah, that's
and then
not good.
any type of slack in the line, they're going to shake that head and, see you later.
And then when you see color, let the net guy
Yeah.
get ready, and
Yep.
you can keep the fluke pretty much right where he is.
Absolutely. Just constantly, just
a
keep
little
them
bit of
moving.
pressure.
Never
Swim him.
always swim them. Never just reel it up to the top and just let it
stop.
sit there.
No.
Never. You always want to keep his head moving. Just like he's swimming, just keep circling him, and then when you're ready to go, get that right shot.
So the last time I was fluking with out in the shoals was with Jim, and I was giving him crap because he was like painfully slow. Like, remember the game with the electric pole? If you touched the side of it with the thing when you were
it
going
pops,
down it,
yeah.
it would go off or whatever.
Operation?
It was just so, I don't know. It was probably some carnival game. It was he reeled so slow that it was like it was painful.
It
for
was
me to
admittedly
watch.
watching that on tape. It was too slow.
Yeah.
But I remember there was the problem was we were drifting fast. There were big seas, so the boat's going up and down. I was trying to control for
So
each.
in that situation, know the conditions too. So if you're going to do that, when that boat goes up, you're not reeling because you don't want to reel against that. So when that boat comes down, hence again, be ready to reel fast because, like anything else, you're dropping 3 feet real fast, and if you don't keep that tight,
It's a game of keeping the rod at the same angle of bend.
correct. Keep that bend the
No
whole
matter
time.
what that fish is doing or the boat's doing, and that's when you're putting steady pressure on
So
a fish.
I dropped him probably halfway up. It had to be the biggest fluke I ever hooked in my life. And I took a lot of shit in the comments section when we put that video on YouTube. People were like, why didn't you beat it? Like, why didn't you drop it back to the bottom? I ripped it up and I was there and sulking and being a big baby about it. But I've heard this from guys, like, if you beat them back to the bottom, they'll eat again. How true do you think that is?
I don't know. I think there's just that much amount of fish down there where the next one will come up. We got some nice footage on my boat from, I think, 5 years ago. You got a doubleheader 10-pounders. So there's a lot. When you go over a certain area with a lot of fish, you drop back down. There's going to be another one waiting, because they're there for a reason, So you could have dropped it back down, but then too, if you drop it back down, what's your gulp look like? Is your bait over the hook? Is something wrong? So my thing is if you miss them, or you miss them like a quarter of the way up, drop it back down. Get another minute or two drifting in, then reel up and check, because maybe that thing that enticed them to bite in the first place is not there. Maybe your sand eel fell off. Maybe your gulp is halfway down the hook. So you could drop it back and check it, but with a fish like that, they're not going to bite again. There'll be something smaller down there grabbing on or something. If you're halfway up,
just dropped a 14-pound fluke and you get a sea robin.
Yeah, exactly.
I beat him back down.
And honestly, too, like when we're releasing a fish, too, these things, they don't go straight down. They're going across.
Wow.
Yeah, they shoot out.
So they're not going back down the same spot. They're like, I'm going out. I'll see you later.
Getting the hell out of here.
If you miss them a quarter way up, drop back, but not halfway. Because I don't know. You can do what you want, but in my opinion, I wouldn't.
So bait-wise, you mentioned sand eels, you mentioned gulp. I've been on your boat. You usually have either like sand eels or spearing to go on.
I got the buffet set up. So, always have squid. I always have squid. The squid is like one of the most prevalent baits in our area. I get local squid. That's always there. Always have it stripped out. Or small whole squid too is another good bait. Spearing is always good. I love using spearing. I have a lot of customers that come from Long Island and they use spearing a lot. So I make sure I get a nice quality spearing product. Sand eels, always another good bait, but like anything else, sand eels are expensive. So, or sometimes you don't know the size of the sand eels you're going to get. So, but I do like sand eels because that is one of the forages.
Is that
out
the
there.
primary forage out there, sand eels, or?
It all depends, honestly, on the time of the year. The bait changes, squid. There was like the year we got that big one. It had a bunker in its stomach.
Really?
Yeah, had a whole bunker in its stomach.
Wow.
So, other types of bait, like the fluke belly is probably like the creme of bait, just because the fluke out there are so fatty. It's such like a nice bait. You pick that bait up and you got that oil on your hand afterwards. It's good stuff. So, and don't be afraid too to use the brown side. A lot of guys are like white side only. Don't be afraid to try a little dark meat. You might be surprised. And then usually I just have that stuff out. And then if you get a bluefish or something, we'll strip out the belly. I try, like some guys like, oh, you got to bring salmon and use salmon and all
salmon
sorts of
belly.
stuff.
So yeah.
Everything works at a point. In any type of situation, but what works more consistently, and like you guys
or
know,
more situations.
Correct.
Well,
correct.
Which would be consistently, right?
Exactly. So, the problem we have too is dogfish. So you fish these oily baits.
Say that.
You fish these oily baits, you're toasted.
You're calling them in from everywhere.
Exactly. So know your situation. Like you said, gulp is.
Those dogfish tend to roll deep.
Oh, yeah. No, so honestly, if you could have anything, I'd have a gulp on the boat. Or like Z-Man has those new Dormatador stuff. Some type of stuff. Those Dormatador, you guys had it last year. It caught, but, the gulp works well. Fish Bites has got a new product out that I'm going to try this year. But the gulp rubs are great, because sometimes you can't fish bait out there because there's so much dogfish.
And that's a conditional thing. Like I've been on trips, and it doesn't seem to matter the time of year. Like whatever the conditions were leading up to that
it's
trip.
All conditional.
Are they coming from around the backside? Like
are
they following colder water in?
They're coming when they want to come. So, there's no rhyme or reason to them. And when they show, I
usually beat feet.
It's like a plague of locusts, dude.
Yeah, I tend to try to get away from them.
Yeah.
Just because.
Yeah, so you end up having to run away from the dogfish.
Yeah, I just kind of hightail it, and the good thing about where we are is there should be another spot that has something.
How untouched is it out there? Like, are there places where nobody's drifted for fluke yet that there might be big fish, or is it been pretty well
there's
covered?
Guys that have fished out there before I have, and I've tried to cover a lot of areas, and and I'm still Christ, I'm still learning, you know. If you're not learning, are you really trying, you know? So, you know, there's guys that fished out there longer and tried more because, you know, the benefit of being a 6-man boat is I only got 6 mouths to feed. There's head boats that have 40 or 50 mouths to feed, so they need to get a little more creative and try to find that bigger pile of fish. For me, I can sit and grind all day and catch my 30, and if we got one that checks the box, my day's made, you know? So,
And a lot of your clients are probably coming up looking for one fish specifically.
you know, and I'm going to do my best to put it on. But a lot of, you know, the good thing about a lot of my guys is we've set good expectations. Some of the best trips my customers have had, we haven't caught a fish over 8 pounds. And we, you know, 150 fish days, 5 to 8 pounds. What's wrong with that?
Fun.
But
Fun.
then there's people out there though that'll complain.
They didn't get their 10.
You know, they didn't get their 10. I came to Nantucket. I got to get a 10. And you know
I'm
what?
owed a 10.
I'll give you the name of another guy to go with because
Yeah.
that's not the kind of guy I want. I want guys that are going to come out. We're going to have some fun.
Yep.
We're fishing. Don't get me wrong. I want to put you on a 10 more than anyone else. I want you to have an epic trip. I want you to, you know, put my picture on the wall with you, you know, but it doesn't happen all the time, you know. It's fishing. They move around. They do this. I just want, you know, my guys, we just go out and have fun. Crank up the serious.
It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens a lot because I was on your boat one time and we did not catch a 10-pounder, and I was disappointed because I was an asshole because I really wanted a 10. However,
You're no longer an asshole, dude?
No, I'm joking. It was the best day of Fluke and I ever had. It was one of our first trips, and we broke a streak, and it was an ungodly number that he's like, yeah, I've caught a 10 in this many trips in a row. What was your longest streak for one? Because I broke it. You had the black cat with you, so blame me. But
I think that was
you've had some pretty good streaks.
That was like eight trips in a row, checking the box. You know, and that was a while. That was like 4 or 5 years ago. So, you know, like we talked about earlier, fishery's changing, you know.
Seeing fewer of the double digits?
Yeah. Like, you know, some years, who knows, maybe this year they decide to come in closer and yoke them because there's still big ones out there. The draggers are still getting them, you know.
I mean, you catch quite a few double-digit fluke in a season. Like ballpark, like an average season, how many comes over the side of your boat?
No comment.
All right.
We have a good time, though. We catch some fish. We have a good time. The one thing I will say, though, about the double-digit stuff, out of all the ones that we've caught, I'd say about 90% of them have been released, which is the one thing that I am, as a captain, as a fisherman, as an advocate for that kind of stuff, I'm very happy that my customers have kind of, you know, I started doing that 6-7 years ago, and it was like shunned upon it. I put the videos up on Facebook and stuff, and you go back and look at my social media stuff, I'm sending them back, and all these guys are like, oh, no, what are you doing, this and that, you know? And don't get me wrong, if someone wants to keep it, it's their right to keep it. They caught it. I asked guys, are you going to get it mounted? No. Well, then let's take some nice pictures. You know, that's the one great thing about technology.
Yeah.
The pictures I can take on my iPhone now are phenomenal.
Yeah.
You know, so we can immortalize that fish
And
right away.
even on the mountain side of things, you just get the right measurements, and you can have a reproduction date that is better than
and there's
any
a lot of
skin
companies.
mount you're gonna
There's
get.
a lot of companies that make reproduction mounts better than the live mounts,
and they last longer.
Exactly, and honestly, a lot of guys are on board with throwing them back.
Yeah.
You know,
It has been a movement.
We had a 15-pounder last year. One of my good customers. All right, Jeff, let's send it. Perfect, you know.
That's so cool.
Mike, he comes fish with me a lot. Send it back, you know, which is great. We took a nice picture. I'm just here for a good time, you know. That's what he said. I got it. I got what I looked for. We took a picture. We sent it away. Got it on video, and that's what it is. Video and to send it back because who knows that big one's a few could go back and produce 100,000 more babies. And the good, like I said,
With
about the
good
fluke,
genes.
Yeah, it's not a meat fishery. What do you need a 15-pound fluke meat for? You know, you got to fillet the fillets to cook them. And
Yeah, if you got a few 5-pounders in there, you know,
absolutely.
you're ahead of the game of anywhere else in the Northeast for fluke fishing.
You know, we get 5 fish. Everyone goes home with at least 10 pounds of fluke fillets. And fluke, you know, 10 pounds of fluke.
It goes a long way.
It goes a long way. And then you know, when we can mix in some sea bass too and stuff, I got some guys that want to target them too, and we can have a nice day if you're looking for the meat. But I'm just happy that guys are, you know, taking it upon themselves to be advocates, and because I want to see this fishery go on, you know, and in order to do that, you know, release the big ones, you know, which is great, and I'm happy to see people doing it. But then we got ones that take the bait so deep that you can't release them, and And it is what it is. At the end of the day, though, that fish is getting bled, it's getting iced, it's getting treated the right way. So it's not like we're gonna waste the resource for those ones that we do keep. So that's the one thing I am proud of, that that fishermen in general are throwing back a lot of these trophy or size stuff, which is great to see.
Been a great movement with Tog and Fluke.
Absolutely,
absolutely.
absolutely. No, it's been great. A lot of the guys, I blackfish in the fall out of Rhode Island. I started releasing the 8, 9, 10 pounders. And then
So it's funny you say 8, because I've heard other captains say, like, you don't get to 10 pounders if you're keeping all the 8 pounders.
exactly. No, and everyone's like, oh, we had this great day. We got all these 8s. Well, you kill the 8s, how are you gonna have the 10s? Honestly, in my mind, if you catch a blackfish bigger than 6, 7 pounds, compare a blackfish fillet from a 3 or 4 pounder to an 8 pounder. It's night and day. They got more of a bloodline in the bigger fish. I think you get a better quality product out of the littler ones anyway. So, I'm a firm believer in throwing them all back. The bigger ones. There's a lot of guys around, BJ, Robbie, throwing back Pat Heaney, Venture. A lot of these guys are throwing the big fish back. And then we encourage it. And then, like we said with the Fluke, the anglers are more aware now, and they understand, what's going to happen. They know blackfish grow slow. So if we want to keep having this special fishery, which, the popularity has grown exponentially over the past 10 years with more pressure. So if we want to keep this thing going, that's the only way we're going to be able to have this quote unquote, target trophy, in the future. So
Absolutely. So one thing that I've always, started to do once I get a certain species dialed in is been able to find that big fish bait or take an approach that's going to weed out some of the smaller ones. If you're out in the shoals and you're literally looking for that one bite, is there anything that you can do on the offering side of thing that is going to give you a better chance of catching the biggest fluke down there and maybe weeding out some of the smaller ones? Not that there's a lot of small fish out there.
I've caught the biggest fluke have come on the small baits. Yeah. So sometimes they want a big bait, sometimes they want a small bait. We did that rigging video earlier, and I recommend guys just use small baits, smaller baits, or if you're going to fish a bigger bait, fish it with a stinger hook, because a lot of guys will fish these big baits with no stinger hooks, and then you get your bait back and half your fluke ribbon is already filleted. It's like, well, you missed them.
Yeah.
So my big thing is just paying as an angler, pay attention. Who's the guy catching on the boat, guy or girl catching on the boat? What are they using? Is it a color? Is it a type of jig head? Is it a long leader? A dropper rig? Is it a bucktail? What color's working? What bait's working? Because I've caught some of the biggest fluke in my life on 3-inch spearing. So they're opportunistic feeders. They're going to feed.
They're going to eat when they want to eat.
Exactly.
But they will dial into colors, right? Is that
exactly.
what you're saying?
No, absolutely. The color, in my mind, the color is a big thing. And then also the bait that goes with it. Like some days you'll see them that only want squid. And you better make sure you got a lot of squid on the boat, because if you don't, you're going to be in trouble. And then it could be a color pattern. Like I was talking on the rig a few years ago, 4 years ago, green. Green was hot in June. Hot.
Last time I fished with you, it was blue.
Exactly.
And of course, nobody's got blue anything. And you whipped out food coloring. And you dumped it, you put it in the gulp, you dyed it up. I don't think
awesome.
were you on that trip?
I was not on that trip. I would have remembered that. We were out with them one time, and we were in a mess of mackerel. And they were eating the squid,
that was fun.
The fluke rigs and stuff. So I'm like, all right, well, if we have a chance to put live mackerel down there, we're going to catch I'm going to get my 10 finally. And he looked at us and laughed and was like, have at it. You never know, And we put down and we bailed.
Dude, the second it hit the bottom, there'd be a 5-pounder on it. Like
5 to 7 to 8 pound fluke on them.
But it was the first fish that saw that mackerel that ate it, I think.
Yeah, exactly. But it blew my mind that, like, all right, this is going to get that big fish.
Just because you think it's like, oh, big bait, big fish, and that's not the case. Basically, it's what they want to eat, and just be ready to have what they want to eat. So like for me, I keep a full stock. We talked about this earlier. Those backwater baits, those Dominic poison tails. I love them. Those things are great. They got a great hook on them. Before the whole poison tail jig became popular, Dominic was the first one making them, and I aligned myself with him. I met him through a customer, and him and I hit it off. And the good thing about him is, which is great, is he's been very receptive to like, hey, can we try this color combination? Mm-hmm. And can we try this one? Can we try this one? Let's try this. Well, I got this, and can we try this color? And then he's been great about it. And then a lot of my customers now, and a lot of fluke fishermen in general, have jumped on that wagon. And, you see that spread they bring, and they have all these different color combinations.
You can do anything with those baits,
But
man.
that goes to, you never know what's going to work. You always have to be ready. And don't get me wrong, I've had a lot of customers catch big fluke on big baits. But you got to know when to use the big baits. So if you're going to use a big bait, in my mind, I want to have a fast drift. Because the fast drift, that bigger bait will lay out nicer. So that's when I go to the 3-way rig. And I'll fish a 3-way with a longer strip, because I know that if I'm drifting at 2.5 knots, that bait's going to lay out nice.
That's a good tip right there, man. That's a really
so
good
if
tip.
I'm fishing a big bait with a knot drift, that thing's going to sit like this, and you're trying to jig the rod, that bait's not even moving. So comes to the rod. The rod will move the bait, and this and that, and having the different tools to get the job done. So knowing your conditions, knowing the situation, don't automatically assume that, all right, I got to put this big fluke ribbon on and I'm going to get one. All my big fluke have come on like little the poison tails, man.
Yeah.
I'd say last year, a lot of my customers, like I said, are on the back. I'd say 90% of our double digits came on the backwaters with poison tails. So,
is that rig the chicken rig or the popcorn rig? Because I've heard it called both.
I don't know. I call it the simple rig. Chicken rig, popcorn rig, high
matter
low,
what it's called.
Whatever you want to call it,
Works.
And then God love these guys that have a lot of time on their hands, and they put the jigs out and they tie the dropper loops at certain angles and certain lengths, and my good friend Jimmy loves tying the T knot so it stands out. Dude, I tie a simple dropper loop, maybe 4 inches, and that's it. I don't double it up. I drop a loop. There you go.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Exactly. And I'm a firm believer in that. And if you got time and you want to tie the standoff knot or do, the old Graham Banks that would loop up and over and try that stuff, I like the dropper loop because it's a consistent connection. Like I have some guys that'll want to cut the dropper loop and tie the jig on. Whoa, no. You might think you have enough turns on that knot, but that knot's going to slip and you're going to lose the fish of a lifetime. And it's happened before.
You're taking 2 stronger knots for 2 weaker knots. The weaker knots of the jig and the weak.
Trust me. And once again, too much time in the winter sitting and looking at YouTube videos. So I've always adapted the just a single drop, just dropper loops. That's it. I don't try to reinvent them. I don't add clips to them to swap out easier. Just regular high-low dropper loop. That's it. Or if I'm fishing a long leader, 3-way swivel. Little tag end to the thing, and I I don't fish like a 3-foot one. I usually just fish like a 2-foot leader off the 3-way.
That's shorter than I would have thought. Like I would have thought like 30.
The problem
inches,
is when you
30.
fish a longer leader, how are you going to lay it in the water? You're going to try to cast it up tight, and that thing's going to spin right around. So know what you're capable of as an angler and how well you can get that in the water, because once again. Everyone's, fluke spoons are real popular now. Guys using a lot of fluke spoons, and then you add the big baits, and then the squid after the fluke spoon. That's a lot of weight. So when you have that sinker going out on the bottom and that bait's going, it's going to spin, and you're fishing for a half hour and you're not presenting right. I fish smaller because I know I can cast it up tide, get a decent presentation with it. I know, 8 times out of 10, it's gonna fish the way I want it to fish.
It's maximizing your time at the bottom. You're not wasting any drifts or any time.
Exactly. And that's like anything else. Know your conditions. Don't try to fish a 6-ounce bucktail in a 2.5 knot drift unless you're that guy that can fish in the uptide corner, cast up, get 2 or 3 pulls, and then redo it again. Those guys fishing hard, I got guys that do it. They love to do it. More power to them. But know your situations. Know what works well. I like the high-low rig. You can fish it with 20 ounces of lead. You can fish it with 4 ounces of lead. It's for me, it's been a consistent winner,
And those things have so much action. The poison tails,
Oh, absolutely.
that silicone
they got
skirt,
the silicone skirt, and it undulates in the water, and you can, when you're moving it, those baits move, and the whip finish on it, and you get the whip of the silicone, and honestly, the silicone is a brighter color too. You could glow it, you can mix and match
a wider
colors
range than you can with bucktail, even,
Exactly.
and more durable.
Exactly.
You can make it every strand almost a different color.
You
can get real
you could put into
surgical
it what
with
you want to put
those.
into it. You could taste the rainbow if you wanted to.
Yeah.
So
You bring the Sherman
hot color for
Williams
2022.
catalog with you.
exactly. So those have been great. And once again, those are made by a guy in New York. He puts the right hook on them, because when we first started fluking, we used to use those little Spros with those tiny little hooks on them. And then you have to put a stinger on them, and you drop a lot of fish. So what he did is he took the mold, he cut it out, put a big 8-0 hook in there. And we talked about this earlier with rigging. Fish a big hook. Don't be afraid. Don't fish a 5-0 or a 6-0. By the time you put a gulp on there, a strip of squid or belly, a spearing, or whatever you want, there's not much gap left.
Weedless bait.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're not bass fishing the
Flukeless
ponds
bait.
here.
Flukeless bait.
So I fish an 8-0 or even a 9-0. Take a 17-inch fish, open its mouth up.
Yeah.
Take a double digit. You can put your whole hand in their mouth. So what's a 7 or 8-0 hook? So just be, don't be afraid to fish big, with that stuff. Have the right hooks. That's a big problem.
That was the first thing I noticed about the backwaters. It was like, oh my God, look at this hook. This thing is badass.
Yeah, he customized that for me, because he used to make them with a little 5-0 for the back bays and like Mauritius and stuff in Long Island. And I said, dude, I love your product, but I can't use it. Because what do you mean? Because by the time you put a gulp on the 5-0, because we're fishing the 6-inch grubs, these are big baits, and now they got an 8-inch now. So I know guys are going to want to fish that, but I need space. I need and the hook's awesome, doesn't bend, and he's been very adaptive and changing, and so it's been nice to have that opportunity to work with him, and it makes me more effective too. Anything that can give me a competitive advantage, I'm going to take advantage of.
So I have one more question. Cheech might have a couple more.
I don't. I want to hear this one, though.
What can you tell me? Now, I don't think you've been there. What do you know about cultivator shoals? If
Oh,
you want
like-
to run 100 miles, what is it, 180 miles?
I don't know. I've heard about it. I know people have tried to go out there and look. I know the Viking hits it in their early season tile trips and stuff to get bait. It used to be a bait spot, because Fluke is an excellent tile fish bait.
Oh, really? That's
Oh
interesting.
yeah, Fluke ribbons. All my customers that go tile fishing take the Fluke ribbons. Like anything else, I'm sure it has its time, but you try to go there when the fish are already inshore. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where
Don't swing and miss.
exactly, because that's a big miss. You know,
You're
the
driving
commercial
past a
guys
lot.
are out there and stuff, and everyone wants the next latest and greatest.
I know. I'm guilty
And-
of it.
No,
I'm always
of
looking.
course.
The grass is always
No,
greener.
everyone wants to go to that spot where you think it's like, oh my God, it's going to be great.
This is going to be the holy grail.
Exactly. I'm sure the cod fishing's good down there if you go down there. But, all I see from down that area is what the commercial guys are producing, and you see them, with the 20 pounders and stuff. But they're doing it when
They're a little bit more efficient than
Exactly.
me with a rod and reel in my hand.
Exactly. So I don't know. It's you don't know till you try.
Yeah.
You don't know unless you go.
Cheech, I'll get you a fuel bladder, man.
Yeah, let me
Let's
know how
do
you
it.
let me know how you
Just
make
get the
out on
wind-
that
as
one.
long as the wind's right, we can make it home.
Let me know how you make out on
Hey,
that
we'll
one.
break down by the time we get to Muskegon anyways. What does it matter? I'm renaming my boat the Gremlin.
Oh, the gremlin.
I love it.
Oh man.
Jeff, dude, thank you so much for coming
Oh,
by,
no
man.
problem,
It was
man. I
great to
appreciate you
talk
having
to
me.
Yeah.
Well, it's been good to talk, and I'm looking forward to getting out there. The one thing I will say is, for the guys listening, we have a liberalization in Fluke this year, so we're going to go down to 16.5 inches. But we need people to start coming to these meetings and voicing their input. I feel like, I got to get on my soapbox for a minute. There's the same 10 of us that go to all these meetings. So if we can get some more angler participation to voice our opinions on how these regulations are met, charter captains, recreational anglers, just because, I feel like it's the same 10 of us that have been beating the drum and so on and so forth. And I'm lucky to be part of an organization, the Stellwagen Bank Charter Boat Association, even though the name doesn't really cover us, but we cover all the way from all Massachusetts, Southeastern Mass, everything. So get involved, get out there, join some local groups that can help fight for us, because as we know, fisheries are changing. How they regulate us is changing. We lost sea bass again this year, one of the most rebounded fisheries ever. We lost. So if we can get some more participation, get out there, write letters, get involved, join the club. My website, badinfluencesportfishing.com. Shoot me an email if you want to get involved. I can get you in touch with the right people. It'd be nice to see more angler input out there than just, oh, this is what it's going to be. We'll take it how it goes, and yippee skippy. And it's just that's
Strength in numbers.
You look at how many
Exactly.
people are discontent with the regulations when they come out after it's too late to do
Exactly.
anything. I mean, look what happened in New Jersey this year
so
with their
bad.
2 fish. You're allowed to keep 2 fish between 17 and 17.99 inches, and then 1 fish over 18 inches. And anybody who hears that, it's like, well, why are we doing
They're
this?
signing petitions to get it changed, but I've been going to meetings since January. Where are the people on the Zoom calls? There's 20 of us on the Zoom calls. Just get involved. Right. Don't do it after the fact. Do it when the decision process is being made. And this is all public stuff. It's all on the state's website to get out there. So don't be more proactive than reactive. Don't write a change.org petition after the fact. Nothing's going to happen. Let's be real here. Just get out there when it's going on. Voice your opinion. Because in Jersey they had another option. 3 fish at 17 and a half
17
inches,
and a half, because they wanted to give more fish. It was supposed to be
we had a
more
liberalization.
fish.
So we could have went to 6 fish. So we're at 5 right now, 17 at 5. We could have went 17 at 6 to get a liberalization. But as you know, this is just on a Stellwagen thing. A lot of our members fish like in Buzzards Bay and Vineyard Sound, and they want to see a little smaller of a size limit so they can keep those smaller fluke that are there. So that was one of the things the organization did. We wrote a letter. We recommended this. Would I like an extra fish? Of course. But at the end of the day, as a fisherman, as a business owner, as an advocate, we got to do what's best for the area, not just what's good for my business. So, so my thing is just get out there, get involved. Don't be more proactive. Because I think if we can get out there next year, power numbers, they're gonna be changing up how they measure fisheries and extrapolate the data, dockside intercepts. So there's a lot of changes going on, but it's just barely starting. So if we can start seeing some more input and in those dockside surveys, those guys aren't evil. Give them some data. Data's a good thing because what they do is they'll take the more data they have, the better it'll look for us instead of them trying to make up numbers based upon one intercept.
The closer their estimates.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's my big thing. Get out, get involved, because eventually, if they can, they will take it from us. So
Once they take it, you don't get it back.
you don't get it back. Exactly. So
Jeff, so we can find you at badinfluencesportfishing.com
Sportfishing.com.
and on Instagram.
I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I put up stuff once in a while.
No, I saw the haddock fish tacos
That was
the
good.
other day.
No, I'll do some more stuff. I got some new cooking stuff for Father's Day last year, and we're gonna a little more fish cooking and stuff. But
I could go for some fresh haddock right now.
that was good. It was good. I'm not gonna lie. My kids ate it. It was good. No, but
Look good.
We'll see some stuff on Instagram and stuff, and probably some pictures and here and that. Not really daily reports, but you'll get some highlights.
If you want a daily
Sounds
report,
good.
find an open date, and you'll get a report for that date.
I need your firstborn child for an open date.
Yeah, that too.
Nah,
Put it a few years out.
there you go. I appreciate you having me. It was fun talking, and here's hoping we have some good weather and the fuel prices stay below $5. We'll be all set.
It's
Absolutely,
great
man.
2022, buddy. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.